Welcome in to another episode of Respect Her Game. I'm Laura Stickles. We've got Annabelle Hasselback joining me today, and we have a very exciting episode planned for you. We've got a ton of Olympics content. We're going to talk women's gymnastics finals, team finals. We're going to talk about the women's rugby bronze medal game. We're also going to welcome on Kait Maniscalco to the show in about 20 minutes. We had a really great conversation with her. She's known for co-hosting the Home Run Derby with Tristan Casas, so we got to ask her about that, her TikTok, Ask Kait, which has over 200,000 followers on TikTok, and we talked just about her journey through the industry. So I'm excited for you guys to hear all about that. But first, AB, it's so good to have you back on the show because it's been a really long time, and I know that you've had a crazy couple of weeks, but I want to go back to 2 Mondays ago when BC women's lacrosse was at the White House. Tell me all about it, that experience. I'm so excited to get to learn about that trip.
No, nice to see you. I know we've just spoken on the phone, so it's awesome to see your face. And that's funny that was 2 Mondays ago. Time is flying, clearly. I'm like, whoa, okay, I feel like I was just there. But it was an incredible opportunity. We got to go to the White House with all these other teams that won the national championship this year, fall, winter sports teams. And that in itself was just incredible to be with that many other college athletes. It was funny. You'd go up to someone and say, hey, what's your name? Oh, I'm Annabelle. Congrats. And they'd be like, oh, well, congrats to you too. It was just a bunch of people going around and saying congrats, which is awesome. But no, just to be with our team was so special. Whether or not we were at the White House, that reunion was incredible. I got to see my sister. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's nothing like getting to reconnect with your teammates after college. I know, I don't even remember the last time that I've been able to be around all of my teammates since college. So it's really special that you guys got to have that opportunity again.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it was raining, but we all were like, I don't care. We're all going to hug each other, run through the rain. So it was pretty cool.
Okay, I also want to ask you a little bit about the positioning too during the actual ceremony, because I got this text from my mom on Monday morning. She's like, is that your friend Annabelle standing behind Vice President Kamala Harris at the White House right now? And guys, this was a very busy day in American politics because this was actually the day after Joe Biden pulled out of the presidential race. So that's probably why my mom had the White House live stream. I have no idea. But anyways, I go on to White House Twitter, and sure enough, there you are right behind Kamala Harris. How did that all go?
Yeah, it's funny hearing that back because I'm like, did that actually happen? Like, it was so wild. And I think even before I even get to how I got there, just being at the White House on that day, every college athlete, and there were hundreds of student athletes there. We were all like, should we be here right now? Like, we should not be here right now. As cool as it was like such a historic day, and there was so much going on in our country that just to be on that campus on that day was absolutely insane. But I knew I was going to be the team rep for the ceremony, and I didn't really know to what extent it was going to be. Our captain, Sydney Scales, gave me the opportunity, which was so kind of her. And I had seen a tweet earlier that day that Kamala was going to be speaking. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I wonder if I would be near her at all. Just kind of had the thought in my mind. And we did the rehearsal, and I walked out onto the bleachers. I was in the center, which was cool, but I was at the top. So I definitely wasn't going to be in that main shot with her. And we were waiting in the White House, waiting for the ceremony to begin. And right before we went out, I still can't fathom because it's just so random to me. Right before we went out, all I hear is the White House staff screaming, Annabelle, where's Annabelle? Where's the girl in the yellow dress? Where's the girl in the yellow dress? And I'm like, what have I done? I'm at the White House.
If I heard that at the White House, I would freak out.
Yes, that's what I was doing. And I was with all these other student athletes in line who I had just met 30 seconds ago. So there was no relationship there. Everybody was kind of confused. And so they grab me, they say, we need a pop of color behind Kamala. We need a pop of color behind Kamala. And I had a bright yellow dress on. That was my mom. So shout out to my mom. And when I was packing, I was like, no, I really think I should wear a blue dress or a red dress, like USA. I'm going to the White House. And mom was like, no, wear my yellow dress. Trust me. And I kind of fought her on it. But I'm really glad that I didn't because it's how I ended up right behind Kamala. And I wasn't there for the rehearsal. So we walk down the steps and immediately I see all the cameras. I see that I'm kind of dead center. And to be honest, I took a step to the left because I was like, I can't be dead center. Like I gotta get myself over a little bit. This is crazy. But it was a really special moment just to be there. I had never been in the presence of a vice president before. So like that in itself was really cool. I will say though, I've never in my life thought about how I'm chewing my gum. Like the whole time I was like, number one, why did I leave my gum in? Number two, what if the gum falls out of my mouth? Like I'm chewing, I'm going to be on TikTok everywhere. Like every thought that you could possibly think of, you know, when you're in chorus as a child and you lock your knees and you pass out when you're on the bleachers.
Yes.
All those things were going through my head. So it was a really special moment. I was absolutely honored to be up there. Quite literally was in a lot of shots that day.
I mean, just a couple reactions to that. First of all, how cool that your teammates nominated you to be that person that got to partake in that ceremony. Like that just is a testament to the type of teammate that you were for 4 years at BC. That is so cool. Also, beautiful yellow dress. I'm glad you brought that up. And shout out to your mom for making you wear that. What an incredible story. You'll be able to tell that to your kids forever.
Sarah, listen to your mom. Whatever your mom says, do what your mom says.
Yes. Okay, well, you're also at a different location right now. When I tell the audience that this has been a crazy week for you, or a crazy couple weeks for you, it certainly has. You're currently at Seattle Seahawks training camp right now. You're recording in their podcast suite. We also, like you said, we caught up for a couple of minutes on the phone earlier this week, but just tell me more about what this experience has been like for you in Seattle. Like, fill me in.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And thankfully, no players had podcasts this morning, so they let me use the podcast studio. This is not at my house. No, it's been absolutely incredible. I lived in Seattle, grew up here for 10 years, and just to be back in the Pacific Northwest is unbelievably cool for me. And it's training camp. It's so much going on here at the Seattle Seahawks. We have a new head football coach, so tons of excitement, tons of change in the building. It was Kids Day at camp yesterday, so these kids are screaming bloody murder, like DK, DK, DK Metcalf, our top wide receiver. So it's just been super fun. Lots of energy, lots of fans, big things coming for the Seahawks this year.
Okay, we got to rewind just a couple minutes here because I just got word from our producer, Carolyn, that we have the photo of you standing behind Kamala at the White House. Like, see, look, there she is behind Kamala's right shoulder. Man. That is so cool. Like, honestly, I hope you print that out and put that somewhere because what a cool moment.
It was cool. Well, you know what's funny is I was on the phone with my grandfather after I was at the airport, and I'm like, okay, I got to call my grandparents because they're probably freaking out right now. And my sweet grandfather, we were talking, just okay, great trip. You headed back, and then all of a sudden he goes, oh my gosh. I'm like, what? He's like, you're on my local station. And it was just this sweet moment because he lives in East Haddam, Connecticut, like. He's not in the major city, and for him to have that moment to see his granddaughter, on his local news TV, it was really cool.
Grandparents are totally the best, and no, you're so right. Like when parents get to see even me on TV when I'm like supposed to be on TV, when I'm scheduled to be, like everybody texts you, everybody when they see you, and it really is special to be able to share those moments with people. But being at the White House, like that's a completely different level. That is so cool. Okay, fast forward again, back to Seahawks training camp. Like what? Sorry, I'm bouncing all around here, but
no, it's all good.
What is your schedule like right now?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm here wicked early in the morning. There's my wicked. Clearly, you can tell I've spent time in Boston. I'm here wicked early in the morning, here late, but not as late as the players. I think that's what is cool about being in the building is where all the staff heads out in the players. Like they are working hard. This is not a joke. And it's just fun to be in the atmosphere of elite athletes. I think that's something that, I've always loved. Part of sports, right? With my lacrosse team and the girls that I had the opportunity to play with. It was really awesome, but I'll be at my desk before practice and I can hear the rap music downstairs in the weight room, the guys getting ready. So it's super exciting to just be in the building. And then, it's always fun to watch football.
No, totally. I love that you're describing the environment, describing the rap music. Like that's why I love being a part of sports because it's like you get to feel like you're really a part of something. It's so different than being in a normal 9-to-5 office. Like it takes it to a whole nother, like, it's just fun. Like, it's just fun. Like, you're working really hard, but there's a different vibe about it that's kind of indescribable. And I think for somebody that loves to just be part of a team, it's like, okay, I'm not the athlete anymore, but I still feel like I'm a part of something.
Definitely. And you're right. It's when you're with an organization, there are games, there are things to work towards. And that's with any company, you have your goals. But there is something really special about being a part of warm up, seeing the fans come in, watching the players, how they train and the extensive meetings that they have, and then all the things that it, comes to. And then the one-handed catches that they're able to make out on the field. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're going to shift gears here a little bit into the Olympics because, I mean, if we wanted to really recap every single story that's coming out of Paris right now, we would be here for 5 hours. But I know we've each picked like a couple of our favorite storylines. And I think we're going to start off with women's gymnastics and the team final from yesterday. The women took home gold after coming up short, getting silver in Tokyo 3 years ago. So that was so exciting to see, especially after the men had just won bronze the night before. It was their first medal in 16 years. And I felt like there was so much hype actually around the men and that medal, like deservedly so. I mean, that's such a cool thing that they were able to accomplish. But I feel like for the women, it didn't get quite that same amount of hype just because like everybody expected them to do it. Everybody expected Simone Biles to be able to lead this team to victory this year. But as we saw 3 years ago in Tokyo, like this is not ho-hum. This is not easy. Like winning a gold medal, it's incredibly hard. You have to go there and you have to be able to perform. So I think for me, the thing that just really stuck with me is getting to see these women that came up short 3 years ago, felt like they had unfinished business. All 4 of them were able to come back, go after this again, and not only win, but get to actually win this time in front of friends and family who were not there 3 years ago. Like, what a special moment for them.
Yeah, it was insane to watch that. I was having lunch actually, and they had it up on the TV, and I had to like turn away because I was getting emotional. I'm like, all right, I can't cry right now. Like I'm at work. But no, anytime you see that flag and you see an athlete hold it up, it is unbelievably special. But I do think you're right. There wasn't as much hype probably as the men because it was like, oh well, they're just so good, they should win. They're expected to win, and that's a great thing to have that expectation on you. But you're right. There's definitely that tone of okay, well they should win. That's the expectation, and a little more mundane, I would say. I saw a TikTok of this guy. He was like laying on his couch eating potato chips, and he like turned the camera to a beam routine, and it was one of the girls had slipped or messed up, and he was like, all right, like, are you serious? It's like neither of us could probably even walk one line with holding someone's hand on a balance beam. So it's just funny because it kind of puts it in perspective that these, women are doing absolutely insane skills that no one, unless you're training like them, could do. And then here we all are sitting on our couches watching and be like, I can't believe like she stepped back after the vault, like kind of thing. But no, super cool to watch them win. And yeah, I think they got to be my favorite team.
There were a couple of moments that really stuck out to me. Also, quickly, when you said their favorite team, did you see what Simone like dubbed the team afterwards? F around and find out. I love that.
In the press conference with Ali Raisman?
Yes, she said afterwards, following that, she said, oh, it was just a joke. Like, we're calling ourselves the Golden Girls because we're the oldest team in Olympic history. But I'm like, I don't know. I think F around and find out might stick.
Oh, that definitely is what they meant to call it for sure. And then the Golden Girls was the backup. Oh shoot, we gotta
come up with something.
Media save this. But did you see the video of Ali asking the question?
No.
She had on these like, and this is so girl, talk about it because it's sick. She had on these like sparkly red, white, and blue heels that like only if you were an Olympian you could wear. I was like, dang, those are sweet. I don't know, they just panned to her while she was in the press conference and I saw her heels and they were red, white, and blue, like sparkle, bedazzle. I'm like, that's what you wear if you're an Olympian and you're in the media. So I loved it.
Yeah, there's some things that being just like elite at sports gives you the permission to wear that if I wore, people would be like, why are you wearing that? But Allie Raisman, she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
It was also funny, speaking of Allie Raisman, apparently when she walked into the press conference, you're not supposed to cheer. Like as media members, you're not supposed to cheer in the press conference. And I guess as the team walked up on the stage, somebody from the audience cheered, and it was Allie Raisman, and she was like, oops, like I forgot you're not supposed to do that, which was so funny.
That's so good.
Yeah, there were a couple moments that I just like want to make sure we shout out because I thought that they were so special. Jordan Childs, the look on her face after she nailed her last tumbling pass, she's known for being like so vibrant, so bubbly, but you could just see on her face that she was like overcome with emotion in that moment, which I thought was really special. And then you mentioned the beam routine that Jordan actually fell off of. She was leading the United States off on beam. And Suni Lee was next up on beam, and she absolutely crushed it. And I remember the analysts saying, like, that can be extremely hard to be that teammate that follows after a mistake on beam or a mistake on any event, because it's almost like it can snowball. But to see Suni Lee go up and absolutely hit that beam routine, is probably like the best she could have done it. That was really cool too. And then a note that I wanted to get your reaction on Simone Biles' first tumbling pass. She went nearly 12 feet in the air.
I can't even like comprehend that. That's like two Seahawk players. I'm thinking like they're each like 6 feet tall, kind of. That's insane.
I don't know how you get that high off the ground. Like my vertical is like a foot. Like how do you do that?
She's the GOAT. That's why she's the most decorated U.S. Olympic gymnast. Like if you're jumping that high, it's flipping that high. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I saw with Simone and Jordan, I think they're at the same gym. They panned to the gym with all the little girls that train at that gym. I don't know if you saw this.
I saw this,
and
yes.
The girls were watching the floor routine, and not only were they like watching,
they were doing it.
They all kind of like knew it. Like it was the cutest little thing because their eyes were straight up. They were doing their dance. They all knew it, and there were a lot of them. I just was like, that is so special. Like for Simone and Jordan to have that impact on those girls, but also for those girls to share in that experience, right? I can imagine that they're always going to remember that day that they watched them compete at the Olympics and they were all together.
No, I saw that same moment and that stuck out to me as well, so I'm really glad that you brought that up. Okay, there was another game, too, that was actually also extremely exciting for the United States. It was the women's rugby who were competing against Australia for the bronze medal. And okay, I wrote down some notes so I can describe to everybody what happened here. So Australia, the number 2 ranked team in this competition. The U.S. is down 12-1, bronze medal on the line. USA pinned in their own end. Alex Sedgwick breaks away from defenders. She has like 4 girls on her. I watched this. I'm like, how is she able to shake all of the? I mean, these are strong women. Like, I'm like, how did she shake all of the?
When you say 4 girls on her, for people who don't know a lot about rugby, I didn't. This isn't like basketball where you're like kind of covering someone or like you're not really like tackling them. She has 4 girls like on top of her.
Yes.
Yes.
Like literally, like
just,
there's
like,
a girl
I'm
with her.
you.
There's a girl with her arm around her legs. I'm pretty sure I saw, and somehow she manages. Somehow she manages to break free, runs the ball 90 yards in for what's called a try in rugby. It's like the football equivalent of a touchdown, and then she kicks the game-winning conversion, which is like it's basically like the PAT in football. So to win the game. So that was incredible. And I actually saw an NFL analyst, Warren Sharp, compare it to the Auburn-Alabama game back in 2013, the kick six. And I'm like, that's the perfect comparison.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that was
it really is.
I mean, what a cool moment, too, for USA Women's Rugby. This was a sold-out stadium. I'm pretty sure there were 66,000 people there, at least. And, I mean, USA, like, rugby in the United States isn't a huge deal. Like, there's not a lot of college varsity rugby teams. And to see them be able to compete against the best teams in the world and come up with a medal, like, that's amazing.
Yeah, those girls and how they celebrated, I mean, they were on their knees, crying, hugging each other. Very different emotional response compared to the U.S. women's gymnastics team. And not that either is better or worse, but you can just tell that the medal, just getting a medal, meant that much to them. I think they even panned to the girls on the sideline when Cedric was running, and they were like, what the heck? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like, they were in shock, right? Like, till the last 3 seconds, it didn't look like they were winning that game. But you're right. Rugby wasn't something that I grew up with. I think I knew of one girls' youth rugby team ever my entire childhood. I don't even think it was an option for me. I think it was through a town that I didn't live in, so I wouldn't have been able to play it in anyway. But yeah, it's cool that now there's this hype and now there's this media attention with it, because it is a baller sport. If you're playing rugby, like, power to you.
Completely. Alona Mar, too, she's on that team, and she's been like the TikTok star of the Olympics. But there's also a lot of other stars right now that are around Paris. And I know that we were chatting about Snoop Dogg, and it just feels like he is the Where's Waldo of the Paris Olympics.
Yep. It's so funny to me because, and no hate at all to Snoop Dogg, I think he's great, but he's not an athletic looking guy. So to put him next to all these like Olympic athletes, he, with this photo, he's celebrating with Caleb Dressel's wife. Like, that's a pretty emotional, intense moment that she'll remember forever. And then, oh, there's Snoop Dogg. Like, where did he come from? I just think it's so funny.
No, it's hilarious. I actually saw a video that they put together of Michael Phelps teaching him how to swim. He's not an athletic guy. Very nice. It goes other very redeeming qualities, but athleticism is not one of them. But no, I'm so glad to see him having so much fun in Paris. Like, I'm jealous. I wish I was there. Yeah. So yeah, happy for Snoop Dogg.
Hey, man. He was powerlifting, he was commentating swim meets with the family. Like, not only are you just like in the stands, you're like experiencing someone's best moment of their entire life, right? Like, you're literally experiencing that with them. I think there was a photo of him carrying the torch. I mean, just hilarious.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's a ton of stars around Paris right now, but there's one star that is not there. And I think that Nessun, for the next Olympics, I think that you should come up with some sort of budget to send Tristan Casas there, if it works with his scheduling, because he is just like a content goldmine. I know he would do a great job, and we actually got the chance to catch up with Kait Maniscalco, who co-hosted the Home Run Derby with him just a couple of weeks ago. She talked all about what he's like as an on-air talent. We also talked with Kait about her journey and also just about the Major League Baseball season so far. We are so excited to welcome onto the show Kait Maniscalco, the creator behind the social accounts Ask Kait, which has over 200,000 followers on TikTok. She's also a big Yankees fan, but we're not going to hold that against her. And she's probably best known around here, though, for co-hosting the Home Run Derby with Tristan Casas on the MLB TikTok stream. Welcome to the show, Kait.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we were talking a little bit even before we just got live just about how that whole MLB Home Run Derby experience went for you. How did that first of all, just like, how did that come about?
Yeah, totally. So I worked with MLB Social in the past. So earlier this year, I was at their inaugural All MLB weekend, which they're hoping to make it similar to NFL Honors, where they just honor all of the best awards and best players during the Major League Baseball season. So I was with them in Vegas in November. So I had a pretty good relationship with MLB Social. And then they reached out to me, and they've been doing this TikTok Live for the past 3 years, but it's grown each and every year. And they asked if I would be down to host. It was an immediate yes, and probably the most fun I have had in any opportunity that I've been given.
How did you find out that you were going to be co-hosting with Tristan Casas?
So it was actually funny. My first call with them, they said, we're hoping to get Tristan. And initially I was a little bit surprised because last year they had Ozzy Albies. So I would assume it would be people that were in the All-Star game, but Tristan's been hurt the entire season. He's been doing, broadcast appearances, a couple on Nessun. He was mic'd up for Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. And they reached out to Tristan. He said, yeah, sure, I'll come down. And he did a fantastic job. I was ecstatic to hear that it was him.
Well, it's so funny because this MLB live stream came like a couple weeks after that appearance on ESPN when he had that hysterical interview. How much do you think that interview actually played into him getting selected?
I think with Tristan, it's interesting. And I always say this to people, what people mistake about him is he's actually very knowledgeable about the game. So I compare Tristan to how Kevin Durant is in basketball. He has a very high baseball IQ. And I think just hearing him know all the stats off the top of his head, he has a very good memory. Like that was very impressive, him rambling off Jaren Durant's stats just on Sunday Night Baseball. I think that they saw something in him from that moment and that he was able to hold a conversation for a pretty long time. So it translated into him hosting for the Derby.
There's actually this really funny, I feel like Tristan just knows something about everything, because there's actually a really funny social clip too of Tristan going around about one of our co-hosts, Natalie Nuri. She had this Louis Vuitton bag and he like knew exactly what type of Louis bag it was and like knew the year, knew how many stripes that. I don't have a Louis Vuitton bag. I don't know the details behind it, but it's like, I feel like he just knows something about everything. But I'm curious, what was he like as a co-host? Like, did he prepare a lot? What was his vibe? Like, what is he like as an on-air talent?
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a funny story because this wasn't aired. We weren't recording it, unfortunately, but I had note cards, and one of our producers, Sydney Wolf from MLB, she wrote note cards for Tristan as well. So she has them to Tristan, and we're like prepping for the show, and we're practicing our intro. And I said, all right, like welcome to the 2024 Home Run Derby. I'm joined with Tristan Casas, and he's holding the note cards, and he tosses them to the side and goes, I'm not going to need these. And quite literally, he did not need them at all. That man was able to pull up stats on every single player. I don't think he referenced the cards once, like didn't look, didn't study them before. He said he knew he was hosting the Home Run Derby for about like 2-3 weeks, but still, like to know and memorize all of those stats was extremely impressive.
No, that's incredible. I mean, just like for reference, I feel like most people that are in this industry have notes. Like I have, 2 pages of notes right here. Like I could not imagine going into the Home Run Derby, no notes. That is wild.
Yes, with like 8 players, and also we had player interviews. Now, obviously he knows the players, but he was asking like Logan Webb these very elaborate questions about his pitch sequence. He just did such a fantastic job. Truly a natural on camera, I have to say. Like, I really think he has a career in broadcasting when he's done playing.
How would you just describe that experience for you? I mean, that has to be such a wonderful experience. I know, like, for me, if I had the opportunity to host the Home Run Derby, I don't know how old you are, but at such a young age, like, that must be incredible.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And I studied journalism in college. When I graduated, I kind of had to make the decision if I was going to go to a smaller market and pursue broadcasting that way, or if I was going to go to the Yes Network, which is a larger market, but I would be behind the scenes. So I chose that route, and social media was kind of on the rise at the time. So I said, all right, like, let me just take a stab at this, see if it will work out. And I mean, it's worked out pretty well so far. Doing the Home Run Derby was what I've always wanted to do. Like, I've always wanted to host live events, interview players. And it was funny when we wrapped, it was 8:15, so we were hosting for an hour live. I remember turning to Tristan and I said, I feel like we've only been talking for 5 minutes. And that's why I always tell people, like, that's when you kind of know you're in the right career, because you're so passionate about it. You're having so much fun, you don't even realize that time is passing.
No, totally. What was your favorite moment?
Ooh, favorite moment. Definitely. So we had 1 5-minute break, and they came up to me and said, all right, we're going to go to Tanner Huck, and then we're going to have Paul Skeens. And my jaw hit the ground. I'm like, we're getting Paul Skeens? And they said, yeah, Paul like volunteered. He said, like, I'll do the TikTok live. They were going up to the players, asking them. Interviewing Skeens was probably the highlight of the entire Derby, just because there was so much hype centered around him. It was a lot of fun to talk to him and just learn about like his pitch style and his sequence, especially at such a young age. He is so impressive to me, and he also has such a great pitching brain and a great pitching mind. And at the same time, like, the amount of success that he's had, he's so humble. That was by far my favorite part.
I actually watched that Paul Skeens interview, and I was really impressed with it, because Skeens, I watched a lot of his post-game interviews, and he's not necessarily, he doesn't say a ton, but yes, you got a lot of really interesting stuff out of him. Like, what was your kind of like technique or your thought process going into that interview?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to ask him about the All-Star game, and I tried my best, because I know they're always going to be super humble, but I tried to lighten him up a little bit. So I think us asking him, like, oh, you used to be a hitter, like, at the Air Force, like, what do you think you could hit some out of here in the Home Run Derby? And I feel like that kind of like lightened him up a little bit, and he got a lot more like calm and relaxed. But we actually had no idea we were interviewing him, so I was just coming up with things on the spot, and it worked out really well. I was just trying to hype him up, make him feel good, and at the same time get some information on his style and his sequence with pitching and all of the hype that's been centered around him.
No, totally. I was, like I said, I was really impressed with that entire interview. And we actually have a funny correspondence from back like a couple months ago. I reached out to you just because you posted this really great edit of Gunnar Henderson. It was like just a fan edit, or I don't know if it was a fan edit. It was actually probably a professional creator's edit. And it was actually amazing. It was to Gwen Stefani's Sweet Escape. And I sent you a DM. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Like this is so funny. Well, not funny. It was just like really well done. And I actually saved it. And it made me like a Gunnar Henderson fan. So he was my pick going into the home run derby. I think he only hit 10 home runs. Like it was not a great pick to win the home run derby. But in any case, and you actually said you had a funny interview too with Adley Rutschman. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was hysterical. So I've interviewed Adley in the past. So we had like a little bit of banter, and Adley came over. We weren't able to watch the home run derby at all because when you're hosting live, like we weren't allowed to show the derby because ESPN had sole rights to it. So we were just trying to talk about other things that were happening in Major League Baseball. Adley comes over, and this was after Gunnar Henderson went, and I said, did you give Gunnar Henderson any tips? And Adley's like, yeah, no, I did. Like, I told him to do this, this, and this. But it was tough because he only hit, 10, 11 home runs, whatever it was, in the first round. But Adley was a great sport about it. He was fantastic.
No, we have a segment on this show sometimes that we do called Media Mayhem Moments, where it's like nothing on TV goes as it seems, and sometimes you make mistakes, but it's all fine, and that's just, part of the deal.
Yes.
Anyways, I want to shift gears just a little bit. I actually want to I know you're a Yankees fan, but this is Nesson. We're, home of the Red Sox broadcast. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the Red Sox. And something that I love about Cheer Stuff is that you talk about all the teams. You talk a lot about the teams in the AL East, but you're willing to talk about everybody. And it seems like you really, everything's positive. Even though you're a Yankees fan, you're never really tearing down the other teams. It's sometimes frustration, oh gosh, why is this other team so good? But You're also an incredible storyteller. You're informative, the storylines are great, and when you watch your videos, it feels like I'm friends with you at the same time. It's really impressive. So I want Red Sox fans to kind of get that experience. So how would you tell the story of the Red Sox season to this point? Keep in mind, we're recording on Monday before the trade deadline, and this comes out on Thursday. So for people watching at home, we might not have the most up-to-date context yet, but Kait, how would you describe the Red Sox season and their storyline to this point?
Yeah, totally. So it was funny because the start of the Red Sox season, they were bit by the injury bug. It looked very abysmal. Netflix was coming out with this documentary series. I truly, and again, like you said, I really don't bash any other teams. I know I'm a Yankees fan, but I never really bash the Boston Red Sox. I respect all teams in Major League Baseball. But at the start of the year, you kind of were thinking, oh my gosh, what is this documentary going to be about? We have young guys that we're kind of relying on. We're dealing with a ton of injuries, especially Trevor Story. So that was tough for them. They have made such an insane turn, starting in May and June. The stat that I found the other day, since June 15th, the Red Sox had the best record in the AL East. They had one of the best records in Major League Baseball in May and June. They kind of did a full 180. And I think specifically they have so much hope and so much to look forward to. Signing Alex Cora, his extension, they wouldn't have done that to him if he wouldn't have signed that extension, if he didn't think they'd go all in at the trade deadline. Jarren Duran has been doing fantastic, which I'm so excited to see because he struggled a little bit in the beginning, but now he's coming full circle. Connor Wong's been doing great. Rob Refsnyder. I feel like with the Red Sox specifically this year, they almost have that never settle, never out mentality. Even if you watch the Yankees Red Sox series this weekend, it was back and forth the entire game, all three games, which was very exciting to watch. Despite the Red Sox being down 3-0 twice, they still came back. They still were trying to fight. And the long ball, they've been getting all season long. Rafael Devers has been doing fantastic. Tristan Casas is doing rehab games this week. So there's so much promise and there's so much to look forward to as a Red Sox fan. And I think truly they can make a deep run in the playoffs. And depending on how they do at the trade deadline, they could be more scary and more competitive than the Baltimore Orioles. I think that's going to play a big factor.
I think it's so fun because I feel like at the same time, they've also proven themselves wrong a little bit. I don't even think that they thought that their pitching was as good as it was coming into the season. And right from the beginning of the year, the starting pitching was some of the best in Major League Baseball. And the pieces that you had, Cooper Criswell coming up from AAA, pitching so well. Nobody really expected him to be able to do that. Obviously, Tanner Houck having an incredible season. And then beyond that, it felt like back in May when it seemed like the Red Sox were really starting to put it together, every time they'd lose a game, it felt like to me, people would say, oh, it's the wheels are about to fall off. But it never happened. It never happened. They continued to put wins together. It was really impressive. And yeah, I think it's such an exciting season, especially like you said, with Netflix being in town. So what Netflix storyline do you hope that Netflix pushes in their documentary?
I really want them to push like the underdog storyline, the underdog mentality. I think that's probably the best way to go, especially because they started off in April. It looked like pretty shaky. Red Sox fans were going, what are they going to talk about? They have gotten so many great storylines this year. I mean, prime example, Jarren Duran being named an all-star, being all-star MVP. I really think he's going to be a focal point in the Netflix documentary. Hopefully when Tristan comes back, him turning the season around. Rafe's incredible season so far, the starting pitching locking down, and Alex Cora. I mean, I think showing this like underdog mentality and hoping that they make a deep run in the playoffs, that could be a really exciting storyline to watch. I also will say this, they mic'd up Tristan during the home run derby, so you might see me and Tristan in a cameo on Netflix, which would be actually really funny.
Oh, I am definitely going to tune into that. My jaw just dropped. I am so, okay. Netflix, put that in. Don't leave that on the cutting room floor. I want to see that for sure. Okay, yeah, no. That's when Netflix said they were miking you up. What were you thinking?
So they didn't. This is the whole thing. They didn't mic me up. Tristan and I met an hour before we started to go live, and we're just chit-chatting about baseball, about the home run derby. And he goes, yeah, like the only thing is like I've been like mic'd up this whole time I've been here. And I said, wait, what do you mean they haven't? I was like, Tristan, they haven't turned our mics on yet. Like we're not recording. And he goes, oh no, like I'm mic'd up. Like I've been mic'd up this whole time. And he literally points to the camera burst. He goes, say hi to Netflix. Like they've been with us the whole time. Because they were miking up Jarren Duran and Tanner for the All-Star game, and then also Tristan, apparently. So that could very well be in the series.
You know, okay, so I do a lot of stage managing, too, at Fenway for Red Sox games. I go down to the field during PP a lot, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, ooh, like, there maybe were mics in places that I didn't even know about. I don't know. That is wild.
Under their shirts, like, they could just still be talking.
If somebody told me that, I would be like, oh my gosh, like what did I say in the past hour? And I don't really say anything that bad, but I'm always paranoid. Like that is wild. Okay, I also just want to ask you about the AL East in general. Like how would you describe the season that the AL East is having?
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a dogfight until the very end. I mean, Toronto and Tampa, they're obviously sellers at the trade deadline and they haven't been doing as well, but the AL East is always the most competitive division. And I think towards the very end, it's going to be a dogfight between the Orioles, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. The three of them have just, it's interesting because like when one team does really well, the other team starts to struggle. And then they've just been like ping-ponging back and forth. But I think specifically for that division title, that's going to come down to the very end. It's the most competitive division in Major League Baseball. It's one of the toughest to compete in. So I'm really excited for August, September baseball for it to come down to the wire.
Completely. Me too. Okay, well, we're going to shift gears here a little bit. And just for some context for you, like I said, I'm one of the sideline reporters in Worcester. I do a lot of ringside reporting for Hockey East on Nesson, and I host some of these shows. And a lot of the other women that host this show with me have a more traditional path in television where they do the sideline reporting stuff, or they came up through local news. But you came up through a different route. Like you were working behind the scenes at Yes Network, like you said. You graduated from Ithaca College where you played softball back, was it 2021? Yes. Okay. So you graduated back in 2021, and now you have this like amazing TikTok page, which is also on Instagram, and you also have Twitter or X as well. So definitely go check out your stuff. But how did you kind of start this TikTok page, Ask Kait, and what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, so I was at Yes, and I loved working behind the scenes. I loved all my coworkers there. Live television is one of my favorite things in the world, but I always knew that I wanted to pursue talent roles and I wanted to pursue broadcasting roles. And I was actually talking with my producer there, Blake Shear, and she said, you know, I've seen a lot of people have success on social media. Like, what if you just gave it a shot? I tell people this all the time. If you looked at my original content, oh my goodness, like they say you can't get better on camera, just like recording through a phone. Yes, you can, because my original content was so boring. I was just doing like recaps of things that were happening in Major League Baseball, or I was showing players after the post game and being like, this is what I would ask if I was a sideline reporter. So initially I started to do it just as a way to practice. And then I found a niche in explaining baseball to women or baseball to those that aren't as familiar with the sport. And it just kind of clicked and it kind of stuck. So that kind of came like my way to get more followers and more engagement, was trying to bring baseball to a different light and to a different audience. And I think that's where I've seen the most success on social media.
What was the first video that kind of took off for you?
Yep, it was baseball abbreviations. And the inspo behind that was I was at a Yankee game with my friend Natalie, and she turned to me and said, what do all the numbers on the Jumbotron mean? And I said, oh, like, that's their average, that's their on base percentage, like this is how you calculate it, like this is a good average, this is a not so great average. And she turned to me and said, I wish they had like a beginner's guide pamphlet that I could read when I came into the stadium. And a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I wonder if people would care about this. So I made a whiteboard video on that, like explaining all the different abbreviations. And then I started doing slang. And those were the videos that started to take off. That's when MLB followed me. That's when a lot of the teams started to follow me. And it was kind of cool. Like a lot of people were tagging their friends saying like, oh, follow this girl so that you can understand what's happening in baseball. So that was kind of like the first video.
That is also such a great idea, like a pamphlet when you walk into the stadium with everything you need to know, like just the basics of the sport, so you can follow along if you've never been to a baseball game before. That is so smart. Every Major League Baseball team should do that. Next time I walk into Fenway Park, I want to see pamphlets there for the people that need them. That is awesome. I love that idea.
Yeah, like a Red Sox 101. That'd be so great.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I guess you could kind of consider that to be game notes, but like game notes are almost a little bit too in depth. Like I need something even more basic than that. Like you're explaining it to somebody truly that's never watched the sport before. That is actually so smart. Okay, I have another question for you though. Like, what does your day in the life look like now for you as a content creator? Because I imagine that it's very different, and you also probably have to have a lot of self-discipline because you're running your own business essentially.
Yeah, so I am a full-time, well, I'm in half-time. So I do content creation on the side. My full-time job is I'm a producer for a social network called Overtime Sports. So I work 5 days a week doing that. And then any content that I make on my own, I do before work or after work. So it's like early in the mornings or late at night. And then I just kind of ping pong between the two. But it is a lot of self-discipline. A lot of from like an economical standpoint, like a lot of the money that you make on social media is through brand deals. So it's working with other brands. It's trying to find ways to incorporate that into your content. But I kind of have like a schedule and a strategy. So like certain brand deals that I have to do that day, and then events that I have to go to as well. But I really try and find like really any breaking news that's happening in Major League Baseball. And that's what I center my content around.
How do you make your content efficiently? Because I know whenever I try to, edit or put together a video, it always takes me like 24 hours. How do you get to the point where it's efficient?
I think there's like different strategies for this. A lot of times I'll record everything. Like I'll batch content. So I'll record 2 hours worth of content and then I'll edit it that way. I actually learned that trick from some of the Alex Cooper, who was a podcast host. She would record her podcast for 3 hours and then edit it down to make it like the most engaging and the most efficient. And I started doing that, and I found like my videos were doing so much better because you can't really find a clear hook if you just record for 60 seconds. But if you record for an hour, then you could definitely find like a clear and engaging hook. So that's the strategy on how I center around my content is I'll record for a really long time and then I'll try and edit it down to a 60-second clip.
No, that's great. I love all of Alex Cooper's stuff. Of course, I feel like everybody does.
Yeah.
No, I love that tip. Record for longer than your video is going to be and just cut it down. Aside from Alex Cooper, is there anybody else that you get inspiration from?
I really loved Annie Agar. She does the football skits on TikTok and Instagram. I liked Annie because I feel like she made me think outside the box a little bit more, because there are a lot of people doing very similar things on social media, but she just took it in a completely different route. And obviously she's had massive success with it. I think she's brilliant and extremely funny, and her content is always super engaging. Even if you don't know a lot about football, which I know a good amount, but not to like the extent of her jokes, they're still funny and engaging. So I think she does an excellent job.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Okay, so we're about to wrap here, but first I just want to get your advice for anybody that's, in college or just about to start college or has just graduated. What's your piece of advice for somebody that wants to get started in this industry?
I would say yes to everything. That's always my advice to younger people coming into sports. Like my first job, I was working at an independent baseball team for the New Jersey Jackals, and I just kind of worked my way up. And especially when I was working at Yes, any job and any role that they asked me to do, I would just say yeah, even if I was really nervous and really scared to mess up. Saying yes to everything, the more skills that you can have in the industry, the more successful that you will be. And even if your first job out of college doesn't look like what you want it to look like long term, there's so much room to grow and you have a clear path, and there is plenty of room for women in this industry.
Well, Kait, it was so great having you on. Before we let you go, is there anything exciting that you have coming up that you want to plug? I feel like you always have things in the works.
I'm leaving to go to the Olympics on Wednesday. I'll be covering the Paris Olympics for 2 weeks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, hold on. We're going to have to go a little bit longer. Sorry, everybody. What are you covering in the Olympics?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of brand deals that we're selling through, but I'm covering all different aspects of sports. We're in a direct partnership with NBC as well as Nike. So any Nike athletes, which LeBron James is a Nike athlete, so hopefully we have access to them. But a lot of it's going to be interviewing the athletes when they're done, like being part of the media scrum, doing fan on the street. But we're covering all major sports. So all of the sports that are in the Olympics, that's all fair game. Beach volleyball, basketball, soccer, gymnastics. We're going to breakdancing, which is new to the Olympics that I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'll be there from August 1st to August 12th. So till the end of the Olympics, starting on Wednesday. So I'm really excited.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. How do you pack for that?
Oh my gosh. I was laying out my outfits today. I'm trying to do the thing that everyone says to do, which is try everything on and then just pack like 14 outfits. I know I'm just going to end up overpacking though. So hopefully I'm checking a bag, so it'll be fine.
Okay, last question. Of all the content that's coming out of the Olympics right now, what's some of your favorite stuff?
Ooh, I think watching all of the Team USA on the boat, and it looked like us crossing the Delaware.
LeBron James like holding the flag.
LeBron and Coco Gauff holding the flag was the funniest thing in the entire world.
That was like whenever I see something of that on Twitter, I still laugh. Like it's so the best. Amazing.
It's so good. Also, like Simone Biles' return. There are so many cool storylines. I actually have to make content on that today, but there's so many fun storylines, so I'm excited to go.
Okay, a duo that I would love to see is you and I hope I don't butcher her last name, but I'm pretty sure it's Alona Meyer.
Yes.
Yeah, the women's rugby player who's hilarious. Do you think you'd be able to like do a duo or something with her?
I'm going to try. If we have an option to go to rugby, I'm going to volunteer and just see if I can hang out with her. She is hysterical. And also for young women, like just a great person to follow. She's so real. She's so authentic. Like she's fantastic.
Okay, I just got a correction from my producer. It's Alona Mar. So Alona Mar. There we go. Okay, Kait, it was so great having you on. Have the best time in Paris. I can't wait to follow your content as well throughout the rest of the Major League Baseball season. Thanks again for coming on Respect Her Game. And for everybody watching, definitely follow Kait on all socials. She's Ask Kait on TikTok and Instagram and X as well, right?
X, yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kait, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I love that conversation with Kait. I don't actually follow like a ton of content creators on Instagram or on TikTok. I kind of let the algorithm decide what I'm going to watch that day. But Kait is one of the few content creators that I actually follow because I love her stuff. I think it's so informative. So everybody make sure you follow Ask Kait on social media. She's so great. And I wish we had another 10 minutes to talk to her because I truly had no idea that she was going to the Olympics. It wasn't until she I'm so glad I asked that question. Offhandedly, what do you have coming up? She's like, oh yeah, I'm heading off to Paris. That I wish I could have talked with her for 10 more minutes about that because I know she's going to have the best time and I can't wait to see some of the content she comes up with.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I loved watching and hearing from you on that conversation and just to hear how her videos started. So cool. It just shows you if you have an idea and you're passionate about it, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we're going to wrap up right here with our wins of the week. I'll start with mine. I actually took some notes on this. So I was watching the 200-meter freestyle in the Olympics, women's freestyle specifically. And there were two women in this, both from Australia, Molly O'Callaghan and Ariarne Titmus. Now, the announcers, as they were calling this before the women even get in the pool, they're like, oh, there might be some drama between these two women. They both compete, or they both train with the same coach, but they don't actually train together. Apparently, Molly O'Callaghan did have the world record in this event, but then Titmus broke it at the Australia trials a couple weeks prior, and it was the announcers were describing this as a very dramatic event. And they're like, there's got to be some drama between these two women. Both women get in the pool. Molly O'Callaghan does just edge out Titmus to win gold, and Titmus gets silver. And so I think, I was kind of waiting, what's going to happen at the lane, at the end of the lane lines? Are these women going to kind of get in a cat fight at the end? Because, that's kind of what these announcers are describing is going to happen. I'm like, okay, let's see some fireworks here. But no, clearly both women have a lot of admiration and respect for each other. During the medal ceremony, the O'Callaghan invited Titmus onto the top step with her for the national anthem, which I thought was really special. And it just goes to show, you can be really competitive with somebody and still be respectful of them and admire them and push each other to be better. I think that's what's really cool. And thinking about it too, it's just because you train at separate times doesn't mean that you guys hate each other. I couldn't even imagine how hard it would be to train with somebody that's you're 1 and 2 in that event in the world, and you have to train with them every single day. Sometimes I think it's better to kind of, this is almost a swimming pun, but stay in your own lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is crazy, but I can imagine that's why they're both number 1 and 2 is because they're able to push each other. But yeah, the mental games that I can imagine. Yeah, I'm 1 today. The tomorrow I'll be 2, kind of thing, just to go back and forth with them. But I kind of had a similar story. U.S. swimmer Tori Husk, she was in Tokyo 1/100th of a second away from getting a bronze medal. And this year she was able to win the gold, just barely beating her own teammate Gretchen Walsh. And like you said, in the Australian situation, Tori invited Gretchen up on the podium with her, and Gretchen had just lost by the smallest amount, something that we would never even be able to tell. And her first reaction was to hug her teammate who's, absolutely crying and is just overwhelmed with emotion. So just to see that, we're all USA, we're all on one big team was unbelievably special. And that redemption, right? Just like the U.S. women's gymnastics team, I can't even imagine what Tori felt having missed getting a medal and then getting the gold and now being on top of the world. It's the coolest thing. And then I just love seeing their raw emotion.
Yeah, no, just even watching the Olympics is an emotional roller coaster. I'll go 1 second from being super happy for an athlete to just crushed for another because they came up just short. But it just goes to show how important this event is every 2 years with the Winter Olympics. The stories that come out of the Olympics are unlike any other.
It's awesome. And my other win of the week, gotta say it, it's not as it's ever changing, but currently medal standings, let me refresh my page here. Okay, the US, we are winning in medals, we are losing in gold. So we need a few gold, but we are winning in total medals with 27 medals right now. So that's gotta be my overall win of the week. US is on top. We're doing good.
All right, well, with that, we thank you for watching another episode of Respect Her Game, and we will see you guys next week.